Because I'm the food specialist and I'm a dietitian, a lot of people think that I don't eat pie. Trust me, they are wrong. Today we're going to do apple raisin pie. And this is one that is going to use raisins, which you can get easily during this time of year or any time of year, as well as apples. You can usually get some kind of a cooking apple. It also doesn't use an excessive amount of sugar. So I've got in the pot, we have a cup of raisins and a cup of water. And I brought those to a simmer, and they've been simmering about 5 minutes. And we want to do this before you add any sugar, because if you add sugar early on while the raisins are in there, they're never going to be able to absorb the water. Once the sugar's in there, because of osmosis, the raisins are going to stay small and hard. So make sure that you do that step before you add any sugar to it. Next, we're going to need a little bit of thickener, and I've got a tablespoon of flour and the 2/3 of a cup of sugar. Now, generally, you'd have to be careful how you add the flour to something hot, otherwise it would lump. But what I've done here is disperse the flour throughout the sugar, and that's going to separate all the little particles so that we basically can just dump this in that hot mixture and will not get lumping as a result. So we're going to add that. This is then going to come back to a simmer, and we're going to let that just basically have a slow boil for about 1 minute, and that will cook the flour and take away most of the pasty taste. If you didn't want to use flour and you prefer cornstarch because it does give it a little bit clearer look, you could do so. You'd use 1½ teaspoons instead of 1 tablespoon, and you'd come out with pretty much the same thing. Once this is simmered for about a minute, then you're ready to turn the heat off from under it. And we're going to add it to, make sure if you're going to do it this way, you've got a really strong Pyrex container to add it to, otherwise it's going to be too hot for your bowl. So don't just add it to any bowl. But because we've got Pyrex and it's tempered for heat, we're okay. I've got 2 cups of cooking apples, Granny Smith's in this case, and I've got a 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. And we're going to season that with 3 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice and 2 teaspoons, of grated lemon rind. So this one's a little bit different than a lot of the apple pies that we are familiar with the cinnamon and that kind of thing. And a lot of the sweetness is coming from the raisins, and that's going to be accentuated by the flavors that we have coming off of the acid in the lemon juice. So these combinations enable us to use less sugar than we might otherwise use. This we're going to add directly to a pie shell, and you can use whatever kind of pie shell you're comfortable with. Some of those that are commercially prepared are so easy to use these days. That's what I'm using. We didn't spend time to make it from scratch. So we simply will unroll the top pie crust and then crimp it down so that it's closed over the pie. You notice this one also does not use butter added to it, which a lot of pies will have a tablespoon or so of butter added to the pie at this point. This is going to be crimped all the way around and then, or closed all the way around, sealed, and then crimp as you go. And then you're going to want to cut some slits in it to allow the steam to escape. Otherwise the crust gets really puffed up and you have a hollow pie underneath. So that will be done. This is going to go in a 425-degree oven for 30 to 40 minutes until it gets nice and golden. And this is what you get when you're done. Again, pie is just something that's an American tradition. An apple pie this time of year is made this way with that fresh lemon, is a real accent that brings out springtime. This is wonderful for Easter or for Memorial Day or for any day when you want something that's a little bit special. I hope you'll try this. It's apple raisin pie. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.